Hey everybody, I'm Betsy Meacham. I graduated from Center in 2011. Um, I currently work for AT&T. I'm in marketing strategy and operations. I I'm sure you guys know what AT&T is, so no introduction needed there. What I do is looking at how AT&T operates their marketing organization as a whole. So it's a lot of intersection of strategy, data analytics, operations, and marketing. After Center, I actually did the Edelweiss program, so I was there for a year, and then I worked in external communications at a children's hospital doing PR, social media analytics for about 4 years. Then I got my MBA at Georgia Tech, and I joined a development program at AT&T. I did 3 different rotations in my development program. I was in corporate strategy, financial planning, and then product marketing. And now I'm in marketing operations.
Matt?
Yes, sir. Hi, guys. My name is Matt Sumner. I work for a company called Berry Global. It's a production company for engineered materials, plastics, etc. It kind of flies under the radar because we don't have any products that go directly to consumers. It's all sold to other businesses that then go to consumers. So most people haven't heard of it, but it's about 50,000 people, and it is a Fortune 250 company. I am in IT. I'm the vice president of our digital employee experience space. The digital employee experience covers quite a bit of areas, including our HCM, which is our human capital management, which is the HR systems. Also our Office 365, which you guys probably use there. That's the same platform. We just use it on a business scale. So running our 50,000 people on it. And then also I run a couple other areas, our HRIS, which is our HR information systems, which is the stuff that people need to get their jobs done. It's how people get paid. So I run our entire payroll department as well on an IT standpoint. So there's a payroll department that's associated with us, and we'll talk about how companies are set up. My team, they have the tools to be able to run the payroll. I went to UNC Chapel Hill for my undergrad. I went to Duke for my MBA, and I did not go to Center, but I've been there quite a few times and have actually talked for some of the classes there, just about different things. So I live in Danville, actually, of all places. And you may be like, why do you live in Danville? And there's one of the Berry plants is here. So in my job, since I am remote employee, I have to be near a plant in case there's a cybersecurity disaster or something where I need to get onto the hard network. So I have to be by a plant. That's the only requirement of my remote work. So that's me.
Nice, thank
And
you
I'm
guys.
in New York, by the way. So very far.
All right, so we're here to basically talk about skills that we need for surviving in the corporate world. Let's go ahead and get started with talking about professional and effective communication. What does that mean? What does that look like in the corporate setting? Why is it important?
Betsy, you want to start or you want me to jump in?
I can go first. I would say for myself, one of the biggest things that I learned going into corporate America was the necessity to be very succinct in what you are saying. A lot of times, especially when you are emailing someone, if they are on the leadership level or executive, someone taught me, I think my first week in corporate America, that executives will not read past the first or second sentence. They don't have the time. They get hundreds of emails a day. So as much as you can, be very succinct in what you're saying. Think of it as like an outline for your email. Nothing should be a paragraph. Everything should be quick, down and dirty, and you should just get the message across. If they need time for you to explain, they will set up the time.
Yeah, she's dead on that, guys. Like that is probably one of the most difficult things for people coming in to understand is that everybody else is running their own jobs and careers at the same time. So the quickest way to effectively communicate the data that you need to pass, I mean, that's what an email is, right? You're passing a piece of data to somebody else so that they can make an informed decision and move to the next step of whatever the process is that you're working. Fast and fast. You see all these wonderful emails that are 7 paragraphs long. And it works at some levels, but like she said, if you get to the executive level, it's a line. In fact, I've seen many executives, if the email is just long to start with, not even gonna look at it. Won't even read the first line. They're like, this person clearly doesn't know how to communicate to me, so I'll wait until the problem boils up to somebody who does know how to communicate to me. And again, so one thing here, some of the stuff we'll say is going to sound kind of snarky or smart, and we don't mean it that way, right? We're just trying to give you kind of an unfiltered, this is how it is. It's not, I mean, it's not that that guy cares that he doesn't have time to read it to you. It's just, it's how the business world works. It's just like how you work your other relationships. You have to work on your relationships. So I kind of seconded on her, but you know, another thing I would say along the same line, so just why we talked the email point, you know, don't respond to an email until you have an answer. Like that is one of the things that's like a definitely a pet peeve of many people. So there's a fine line there. So like if somebody says, hey, I need this by 3 p.m., find a respond and say, got it. They know you're on it, right? And then they'll see that and good. Do not respond and say, okay, great, here's what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go do all this great stuff. Man, whoa, that is bad. Don't respond. Like they're not expecting you to respond and tell them what you're going to do. They want the answer. So just kind of one of those things. It's, you got to get out of the conversational mode and into the deliverable mode. So again, it's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, we're looking for efficiencies and scale.
Yeah. And I think to double down on that, one thing that's a little bit hard to understand, and it took me a while to grasp it, but as you are working your way up in a corporate organization, the way that most organizations are structured are you start off as an individual contributor. So your work is kind of what you're adding, let's say, to the pile, to the method of moving the organization forward. You ladder up to someone and they have multiple individual contributors. All of your work is their work. And it keeps going up rung by rung. So your job is to provide the information to your leader so they can provide it to another leader, so they can provide it to another leader. And so think about what you're doing is you're trying to provide the necessary information to move things forward. And keep in mind that as detailed as you want to go into your own work stream, your leader has probably 10 people working on different work streams that they need to combine all together succinctly to pass on.
Yeah, and I'll kind of jump off and play on that one too. Straight on there, I think, you know, you don't be the needy employee. You want to be the employee that is delivering. And some people think the more contact points with a manager gets you working up that corporate ladder quicker. And unfortunately, that's not usually the case. There's a point where you go too much, right? You oversaturate and you hit the law of diminishing returns, which is this person contacts me all the time. I'm tired of reading your emails, right? You contact me too much. So the way to be the superstar, which is what you should want to be, is to just consistently deliver. And you don't need a ton of communication. The communication will come with the fact that you're delivering. Another point I'll make, you know, you heard Betsy talking about climbing the corporate ladder. That's a really important thing. That statement is real, right? It is real. You climb the corporate ladder. You don't go into a corporation being the director of 40 people. It does not happen. You go get your MBA, you will still not come into the company as a director of 40 people. It doesn't happen that way. What happens is you prove your worth as a quality contributing person of the company, as an individual contributor, and you grow up. Betsy and I started at the bottom. I mean, I started with nobody. I've got 60 employees now, right? But I started as an individual contributor at the bottom. And, you know, yeah, it takes time, 20 years. But then another interesting aspect of this is the corporate world will pay you. Like it's not as glamorous as entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is awesome. And you can do entrepreneurship on the side. You can run real estate deals on the side. That's glamorous. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. It's so cool. You know, I do my own thing. You will get paid and you will get all of the creature comforts and the stability in life from corporate. So it's a catch-22. You're not going to be out there going wild and changing the world necessarily. You do, but just not that quick like an entrepreneur. But at the same time, you're also not going to be looking for where your next meal is coming from, which, you know, I've been an entrepreneur. I still am to some degree, and it's tough and it's not fun. And it's great to do it on the side with a really nice, steady and you're very successful. If you go all in on entrepreneurship, and not saying it's a bad thing, and maybe it's your thing, but if you go in all in on entrepreneurship, you will be broke for a very long time. So the difference with corporate, working the ladder, which sounds no fun at all, right? Who wants to climb the corporate ladder? But you get paid to climb the corporate ladder. So you are being, getting consideration for doing that. And it's not as bad as it sounds. You're not getting stepped on. It's not like there's some guy at the top that's like, I own you. That stuff doesn't typically happen like you see on TV.
All right, so we've hit on effective email communication. Let's talk about professional and effective communications when you are in a room full of execs or people that you are reporting to, or maybe you're also the one that's holding other people accountable. Any tips, any thoughts about professional and effective communication in those areas?
I'll start since Betsy's had to go first every time. So I mean, one thing to be important to understand is every organization across this planet has a culture. So make sure you understand your culture when you come into the company, and it's usually pretty clear. In fact, you can usually learn about and understand a culture before you come into a company. The reason I say that is because there's a big difference between a MetLife, which has a very open policy, everybody hanging out in a big open space with their desks kind of here and there, and a company that maybe has closed office doors because they deal with sensitive data or something of that sort. It's just there's a corporate culture there. The second thing about that, when you understand the corporate culture, you really need to understand, you are a professional now, right? So one of the things I see, especially from people who maybe haven't done an internship so much or been exposed a lot, is the kind of continuing that college communication line. And I'm not saying that you need to change how you talk or anything like that, or change how you look. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you don't want to roll into the office and be like, "What's up, pal?" That's just not kind of the way you want to act. This is now a job, it's your career. And you don't want to be known as the guy or girl that rolls in and it's just like, "Hey, what's up, pal?" It's okay to be friendly. It's great. And people like you. But, I'm not your pal. I'm here to work and try to make this place better. And you are too. So just got to be careful about being too nonchalant. I see a lot of people that want to be like the cool person. And it's like, that's great. And it's fine to be the cool person. But at the same time, we have a job. You're cool because you're actually delivering for the company. So just one of those things. Again, I'm making it sound like it's not fun. It's fun, right? I'm just saying there's some pitfalls there where you don't want to make it too fun, right? Unless you're working at Facebook or one of those places, it might be a different scenario, but typical corporate, you got a job to do and that's why you're there.
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, I think definitely understanding the company culture is important. I work at AT&T. It is a very large company. I think we're Fortune 20. It's very corporate. I keep a blazer when I'm in the office. If I have to go on the executive floor, there is a certain persona that you do need to have to be around those people. That being said, what I found is extremely effective is to make sure that you're still being a person at heart. You're still talking to human beings. Like everybody wants to talk about their kids, about their dog, about their vacation. Understanding people on a human level and being able to have that conversation with them while also being professional is extremely important. That being said, I think there's a fine line when you are first starting in corporate America about when to speak up in meetings and when not to. You want to be able to sound educated, but you also want to be curious. You want to learn. You want to have an outside perspective. You just don't want to diminish the value that you're bringing by not being able to speak in a subject in an educated manner. So I think speak up where you can, especially have one-on-one conversations with your person that you're directly reporting to. Ask them when the best scenario for you to speak is, or when for you to engage in conversations. I think that's extremely important. Part of understanding corporate America too is there are a million acronyms, you guys. Everybody shortens everything, calls it by different names. It's super confusing. What I learned to do is, when appropriate, ask. When you don't know, if it's a large group, I kept a running list of words that I didn't know or phrases I wanted to look up. And when I had one-on-ones with my leadership, I would be like, what is this term? How does it interact with these other things? And just learn as you go. Lastly, I'll say, When you are in in-person meetings, especially after you've kind of developed yourself in this company, you have areas where you want to speak up. If you are younger, if you're a person of color, or if you're a woman, I'll tell you now, in corporate America, you're spoken over a lot. I would find someone that is your supporter, that is your liaison, that when you're in a meeting and you're trying to speak, that they will say, hey, I think Betsy has something to say on this point, and they will speak up for you and give you that opportunity. It's extremely important because sometimes you will be talked over, not in all scenarios, but it's just a good scenario to plan for.
That's really valuable. That's a really key piece of advice there, because the other flip side to that is if you are spoken over and you get aggressive, defend yourself because you've been over, which is a perfectly fair, normal response, then you get the pet tag of you might be an aggressive person, which is totally unfair. But that's how sometimes it goes down. Like, hey, did you just talk over me? Hey, whoa, like I've got something to say that it's correct, but it starts putting a label on you that's not fair. So, and that's not actually by the means anything with D&I either. That's everybody. You know, if you get talking over and you start getting aggressive to not. So what Betsy was saying, to kind of reiterate her point, is that if you have an ally in the room, and you'll have allies, you'll know it. And there's bulldogs in the room too, and there's sharks in the room as well. You know, that ally can be like, oh, wait, did you guys hear what she said? That was really important. And that's a totally normal thing to say. And then people are like, well, I guess maybe she did say something important. I didn't listen. And then it just circles back and you get to say your piece. But the difference is if you say what I just said, then it starts getting a little awkward. So it's human dynamics. It's the same dynamics you guys have in class today. It's really no different, right? So, you know, she was talking about in-person meetings. One of the things, and Betsy said it too already, but I'll kind of say it in a different way from my experiences. If you do speak up, make sure you're contributing value. So like, hey, I like bananas. You know, you're going to just get people staring at you. And the problem is you might say something that you think is absolutely absolutely right on task, right on target, but they hear I like bananas. And it's because you're not really actually on task. So when you do speak up and you want to, especially when you're early in your career, right? You want to make sure you're actually bringing value to the table. If you actually don't have value to bring to the table, don't speak up. It's okay to sit through a meeting and not say a single word. I can't tell you how many meetings Betsy and I have probably been in where we have not said a word. We wanted to probably, but we didn't because we didn't have something to contribute to the conversation. What you want is a meeting that just keeps on going because everybody's got to have something to say. And then you'll actually get moderators in meetings. In fact, you probably have them, Betsy, too. But at Barry, we have moderators in meetings. Like they will call you out and say, you are off topic. We're not talking about what we're supposed to talk to. We need to get work done here. Because something to consider, you know, I don't know what Betsy makes, whatever, but it probably is, I don't know, between the two of us here, you're probably $400 for this hour that costs our companies, right? So you have to remember when there's 20 people on a call, it just starts changing. So that 1 hour meeting, even though it's just a meeting, you know, that 1 hour meeting is costing your company $5,000, maybe more. People don't think in that way a lot of the times. They're just like, hey, it's a meeting, I'm there, I'm getting paid. But if you're disrupting a meeting when there's 20 people on there, you're costing the company lots of dollars per minute of disruption. So it's one of those things you don't want to be the guy that they're kind of tagging like, hey, that guy he just talks. So just something to think about. You'll start seeing that you're not invited to the meetings anymore.
And to fast follow on that about providing value. In most corporations, it's assumed in your first 90 days that you are still getting to know the company and learning how it works. And you are not expected to actually effectively make changes or add value until that first 90 days. Because really that's how long it takes to understand what you're doing and what the company's goals are.
So guys, what do you guys think there? I mean, you guys have questions? You got kind of quiet and see you taking notes and stuff, but like what do you guys, what are some questions? I know we have a couple other topics we're going to cover, but how about you guys do some talking here?
Yeah, so my name's Sienna. I'm a senior, and so I'm about to graduate, and I'm going to be going to working for Ernst & Young back in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm going to be a business consultant. And I did internships with them and stuff, and I think it's great. You talked about like the jargon, because I just remember there's so many acronyms and I don't know if I really have a question, but it's really nice because some of the things you're saying I've been like I've experienced.
E&Y, your name is a jargon, right? We don't even call it, nobody calls it Ernst & Young, it's E&Y and they're doing an audit. Good Lord. You know, yeah, so the jargon is huge, obviously. Charlotte's a phenomenal location. That's actually where I came from prior to here. So, you know, if you want to after talk to Michael about, I don't know if you have family there or anything, but I know everything about that city. So we'd be happy to give you some insight and places to live and stuff like that. It's
Well, I'm from Charlotte, so.
Oh, they're good then. Yeah, I was in Huntersville. I lived in Huntersville for like 15, 20 years. So yeah, awesome. Some great schools there too if you consider continue your education, right? So like UNC Charlotte's a phenomenal school.
Yeah.
I'm Ellie. I'm a senior as well. And then I'll be going to work at Goldman Sachs in London. And I did the internship this previous summer. And I think it was really reassuring how you all spoke about like when you start to feel like you're adding value and like going into it, it may not seem like you're doing much and stuff, because I definitely felt that during my internship. Like I was very excited about what I was working on, but I definitely felt like it wasn't really important or like important enough that I was like feeling good about myself. So it is reassuring to know that like once I start getting going with like the company and my career, like, I'll start to actually feel like I'm contributing.
An internship is a really long interview, honestly. That's all it is. They're just making sure that you've got a head on your shoulders and that you can be part of the company. And look, you got converted to full time. So that's it. That's exactly what it. People go into an internship thinking you're there to make a huge impact and different. You're there to make sure you fit and that they think that you're the person that's going to take this thing forward. All right, you got a cell phone, bud. We're going to pick on you. If you were in a meeting looking at your cell phone, holy moly, you would be out of my meeting, bud. I'm just giving you trouble. I'm not trying to call you out, man. It's college. I'm like,
Any other questions right now?
Well, just thank you very much. You know, I also got a lot of value out of just hearing about the internship experience. I did an internship as well, and then kind of was trying to do my best, but still learning certainly. So it's reassuring to hear that it's not just me. But just in terms of the application process, I know you talked a lot about communication once you're in the company. I don't know if either of you are on the hiring end of things, but what kind of communication are you looking for in people applying to jobs?
Betsy, you want that one or you want me to take it?
I can take a little bit of it. So I am not on the hiring side. We do have a development program in my org where I'm a part of interviewing and helping out in that instance. I would say most communication on the application side, the hiring managers are inundated with communication from people. And a lot of times, I know it's difficult because you're applying to multiple jobs at a time, but as individualized as you can make your communication to that hiring manager is the most effective advice I could give you. And I would say that carries over even into corporate communication. So if you interview with someone, send them a thank you note. I used to, in my portfolio that I would take to interviews, I would have my handwritten note already ready with the stamp on it, the address, and I would just put it in the mail right afterwards. And email is fine too. Handwritten notes to me were better at the time. I think as much engagement as you can have, again, we're talking about on a personal level. We used to have a thing in business school that said basically, if you get an interview, it means they think you're qualified because they looked at your resume. If you pass the first portion, we'll say the first section of an interview, if you have multiple interviews, that's where they're seeing like, okay, can they strategically do this job? Are they capable? Just double checking the qualifications. Beyond that, it's just if you're a fit for the company or not. And that's where they're really looking at your personality, how you interact with people. Will you fit in with the corporate culture? So don't pivot too much on the qualifications. Of course, it's important. You need to interview well. You need to answer whether it's case questions or behavioral questions, but be individualized as you can. Try to stand out as a person who's qualified for the job.
Yeah, and Betsy hit on those critical points in the interview process. No question there at all. The can you do it? Are you going to be able to do it? And then do you fit here? A lot of people are like, man, I got to the third interview and I didn't make it through, and you didn't fit, and it might actually be good for you if you didn't fit, because you will have a nightmare time if you don't fit, right? What I would say, so I do hire a lot of people, but one thing I will tell you right up front is I don't even see resumes that aren't qualified. The HR goes through them and they screen them, and they only push to me the ones that are qualified. So if you apply to a job, I'll give you one. It says a O365 administrator must have 2 years experience. If you apply to that job and you do not have 2 years experience, I will never see your resume. So if you try to email me and say, hey buddy, I'm going to be your guest guy, you never even made it past the first gate. So I'm not saying that's what I'm trying to tell you is don't apply to jobs you're not qualified for. If read that requirements line, right? If it says required, they will not, it's not like you're going to be able to talk your way into it. It doesn't, if it says nice to have, or a commensurate experience, or preferred, those are all okay. That means okay, you could probably talk your way into it if you're awesome. If it says required and you don't have the required, don't apply. You're not even going to get to the guy that makes the decision or the girl that makes the decision, right? So you're just wasting your time, and some HR person is just going to take yours, and you see this yes no stacks. I mean, you're just going to hit that no stack because you just literally the first line. We also have in our company, and I think probably for sure AT&T, we have AI now in front of resumes, right? So if you send your resume, an HR human doesn't even look at that thing until an AI goes through it and says, okay, they've hit these 7 things that we said must be in there to look at, right? So that's another thing, is don't apply to roles that you just aren't qualified. If you're qualified, you'll get through. There's no question, and you'll get an email or whatever you get in there. So, but yeah, it's I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to connect, right? It's hard to connect with the hiring person. It's very hard to find out who that is. There's almost always a recruiter in front of them or HR. So to make that connection before you even made the interview, that's kind of the potluck that you got to get through. But then what Betsy said is critical. Once you've got the connection, can keep with it. But here's the other one last thing I'll leave you with. If you're connected, we've gone with another candidate, we're sorry. Don't come back and try to win them over, right? It's done. When the decision is made, the decision has been made. So if they say, hey, look, we're sorry, we took another candidate, you don't go responding, well, no, I'm the better candidate and here's why. That's actually going to make you look worse. Just be like, crap, and move on, right? That's how it goes. So one thing to tell you about, though, I think Betsy, we're going to jump in, sorry, but one quick thing. Right now, employees are very valuable. It is hard to find good people. And if you are a good person, you have an excellent shot of getting into a company if you're just diligent. Eventually, you'll find the click, right? You'll see people being laid off in massive droves. There's reasons for that stuff. We won't go into that today, but that's not by chance, right? That's a business thing, healthy. But you are still very valuable, and make sure you keep that in mind when you're applying to jobs. Just apply to ones that you're actually fit for.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I have 2 cents on what Matt said about qualifications for jobs, and it is around the type of job that you're applying to. So if you are applying in a technical field and they have technical requirements for the job, such as knowing a coding language, having experience, yes, make sure you have the requirements. If it is more of a corporate strategy job, I'm in strategy, operations, marketing. I will tell you right now, the requirements that we put on there are softly added. The same goes for consulting, I would say. Banking, not so much. You kind of need your requirements. But I learned this in business school, and this is specific for the women in the room. Sorry, men. But a lot of times men will apply to jobs if they have 70% of the requirements met. They feel confident in what they're doing. Women, a lot of times we will not apply unless we feel 100% confident that we can do everything that's on that requirement list. Just to let you know, the men are not doing that. They're applying to other jobs. They're a little bit outside of their scope, and then they're growing within that role. So especially if you're looking at a corporate facing job that's strategy, marketing, softer skills, more on EQ than with the addition of IQ. That's emotional quotient. So being able to interact with people, kind of reading people in the situation, I would say make sure that you are looking at all of the roles that you could be applying to. And then lastly, for hiring, build out your LinkedIn network. Networking is your best friend when you're looking for a job. If you are looking for a job in a specific company, type in that company on LinkedIn. See if you have any second, third connection. See if you can connect with the person you know that knows someone else and just say, hey, I have a friend that's looking at a job here. Like, do you know a hiring manager? Do you know anything about this organization? Just see where you can network where you can. I'm naturally an introvert. It is like pulling teeth for me to do this, but it's definitely helped me in my career, and it is a built skill. You will learn how to do it.
Networking is huge, right? So like you see on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the one, right? So for today, things change overnight, right? But LinkedIn is the place for professional watching and networking, and you should absolutely have a LinkedIn account as soon as you think that you're getting into the business world. Because I will absolutely, if I get a resume through, the first thing I do is go look at the person's LinkedIn and usually see if it matches what they're telling me on their resume, because a lot of times it's totally different. And I'm like, seriously? You're going to send me a resume and your LinkedIn doesn't even match your resume? You would be amazed at how often that happens. I worked for 3 years in an internship at such and such, and it's not even on the LinkedIn. It says I worked somewhere different. It's like, what? So, make sure that stuff matches, but LinkedIn is definitely a key place to be. In fact, we post jobs on there all the time. And you get what Betsy was saying about networking is if I post a job, I'll at the person whose job it is, my manager that has that or my director that has that. And then that person will share it with their network and they'll at their people. And then all of a sudden there's, 200 people that see this job that's available in our group. And it's all people that we kind of know because somehow you're connected. And that's a really easy way to get there. Now, one thing I'll say though, and I don't know, I doubt ATT is any different here, but you can't use that to bypass the process though. So if you get the connection and stuff, I'm still going to send you to the application process. You have to go through the system. There is no way to, I can't just give you a buy and bring you right into an interview, right? However, you could have an off the cuff chat or something or something of that sort. So it's definitely worth networking there and seeing what you can get. Network power. One more thing on the network power. So like MBA is all about, Betsy did hers too, right? It's all about the network and there's power there, but you have to contribute to the power too. It's not like you can just build this big network and magic things are going to happen. You still have to make things happen, right? But having the network versus not having it is really, really important. What's our time check, Michael? What was our schedule here?
Got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So one topic that Betsy kind of touched on that I think I would like to expand on a little bit more. Let's talk about those first 90 days. What should they, as new young professionals, really be focusing on during those first 90 days?
Yeah, I can go first on this one. Since I'm newer in corporate America, I think the first thing is understanding the goals of your organization and what you were trying to achieve. If your company has an earnings call, listen to the earnings call. It is how you are doing in the market, is what you're setting out to achieve. And it is extremely important that you can tie what you're doing in the day-to-day to how the company is moving forward. Often they're recorded, they're posted online, they are very easy to access. Secondly, as you understand your company's goals as a whole, understand your specific organization and the unit that you're working on. Have a one-on-one with your director or your manager and understand what you are set out to achieve as you are brought into this role. Again, remember you're an individual contributor. What you're doing day to day is working towards their goals, which is working towards the company's goals. Secondly, I would say keep a running list of what you achieve every week. I would bring this to your one-on-one with your manager. And when you have one-on-ones, sometimes when you're new in a company, you think, oh, this is where my manager is going to tell me what I'm doing for the week, what my priorities are. It's actually flipped. You should be coming to your manager with, this is what I want to achieve this week. This is what I think my priorities are. Does this line up with what you're looking at me to achieve? And then every week you will have a document with what you were looking to achieve or what you did achieve. At the end of the month, guess what? You have a running list of everything you did, and you can catalog what you're doing and how you're moving forward with your goals. So when you go in for your annual review, you have all of this information backing up what you achieved. I think honestly, it took me like 2 years to be able to conceptually get this and see the return on it, but it is one of the most beneficial things that I've done so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Everything with the culture, et cetera, learn what you're into. But the one-on-ones, it's funny you bring that up. That is such a valuable space that you get. It's your literally your one. It's called one-on-one because it's your one-on-one time with your boss, which you're not other than that time. You're going to come across them in other places, and all of us have a boss unless you're the CEO, right? Even the CEO is a boss. He's got the board, or she's got the board, right? My boss she's the CIO of our company, so she has 2,500 people that work for her. So getting her time when I have my one-on-one weekly is extremely, extremely important for me and my organization to make sure that I'm able to keep going in the right direction. So that one-on-one is through all levels of the company, and all my directors, I have one-on-ones with them to make sure that their teams are going well. And so that's how we communicate. And, as you move up the ladder and hopefully you want to go into management, which is great. And you want to identify that you want to do that. As you move up that ladder, you'll continue to have those one-on-ones, and you'll see that that's the only way you start getting the data that you need. It's like your daily report, right? It's the only way you're going to actually stay ahead of everything, because it's too much. When you have 60 employees or 70 employees, or 100 or 2,000, you cannot handle that. In fact, they in corporate, again, probably same in AT&T, in corporate, especially when at MetLife, the max that a human can handle of reports is 8. So it's 8 people. That's the max that you can effectively manage. So if you have a 5,000 person team, you have 8 people reporting to you, generally speaking. There's obviously exceptions to everything, but that's the max. Most people, maybe 3, 4, 5, that's a real sweet spot, because you can actually give them this kind of time that you need, but 8's the max. So as you go up that and you kind of see that, you start connecting with that level above you and below you. And it's just how you communicate through it. So the reason I bring that around, I know we're talking about the first 90 days there. You'll have those in the first 90 days and say, hey, how's everything going? And your manager is just like Betsy said, in those 90 days, your manager just wants you to get your feet wet and get comfortable, be able to log in and do your MFA and all that stuff, to be able to get in your systems and actually work. Like, that's all they're worried about. They're, maybe then starting to put out some actual output within 30 to 60 days, something, but first 2 weeks, it's just like, whatever, come and join this meeting and just listen. It's really kind of relaxing. It doesn't feel relaxing, but it's kind of a relaxing, like, come on, just come on in here and listen. So that's what to expect in that first 90 days. That said, I will say, you do want to show that you have value in that 90 days, right? So don't be a fly on the wall that's just sat in every single meeting and not actually, make sure your manager knows you've grasped the concepts, because there's only really one person who controls your destiny. Well, 2, your manager and your manager's manager. Those are the only people that control your destiny in corporate. You could hit the wrong HR person or some VP over here that do something wrong to, and they come after you. But generally speaking, your manager and your manager are the people who control your destiny. And those are the people you need to win over and be tight with in order to succeed and continue to advance. So, but I guess kind of one off the cuff thing I'd like to just kind of say why you guys get into this. And I think Betsy probably feels the same on this one, but she can give her own opinion on it. But be careful of getting stuck. This is just general big kind of high level discussion here, especially if you are interested in corporate. And 2 of you guys, from what you told me, you are going into corporate. That is corporate world, right? London, Charlotte, wherever you guys are going to be, corporate world companies. You get stuck quick, right? You can rise quickly and get up, but you'll find a point where you're stuck, and that's when you have to move laterally. And your lateral move may be out of your company. And, you know, corporate's corporate. Don't burn the bridge when you go, because you might come right back, you know, in 6 months or a year as a higher level guy. There's a guy that I know in HR that he left because he couldn't get a manager role, went to a competing company, got his manager role. 1 year he's back in the manager role he couldn't get a year ago in our company, right? But that's how he had to do it. He couldn't just jump up that level. He had to kind of play this lateral game, but it worked. So just, if you get stuck, there's a difference in being stuck for like a week or two or even 6 months. If you're stuck and you're not having upward mobility, either you're not doing your job right and you're not being considered for advancement, or you're truly stuck. Don't be afraid to make lateral moves. You know, be kind of, and you can actually, you have value yourself, so you can actually pull some weight there. So if you do make a lateral move, let's just say you keep going to your boss and say, hey, I need a 5% raise, 10% raise, whatever, and they keep denying a market increase or something. Go get an offer somewhere else and you'll get your 10% raise, or be ready to walk. Don't play the game if you're not going to go, right? So get the offer and you'll get your raise immediately. So there's some games that you'll learn in time, but just what I'm saying is, as you work up your ladder, if you start feeling that you're stuck on a rung, sometimes the best step, as hard as it is to just step out and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and on that, I'll say there are different types of roles in corporate America. There are roles that have a lot of depth. So you're an expert in an individual area. You are the only person that can do this job, and you are critical to that role. Then there are roles that cover more breadth. So you understand a large amount of concepts across different organizations in your company. The breadth roles are the ones that are more managerial. You're managing a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. Kind of understanding where you want to be and what type of role you're better suited for is helpful as you're moving forward with your career. Most people that are working their way up the ladder, if you're not specifically kind of specialized in an area, want the breadth of a role. So as you pass your first 90 days and you kind of get your feet under yourself in the org and you start providing value, as much as you can volunteer, interact with other people doing other types of projects that will increase your breadth, you will be a very valuable employee. Your individual manager is important, but knowing the other managers in the org is equally important. You want to be the person that people want to poach. You want to be the person that other managers are looking at and saying, I want to pull them onto my team to do this. So you want that ability to pivot into different types of roles. And I would say, especially in your first 90 days, don't say no to projects. Don't say no to opportunities to join other things, learn other things, interact with different types of teams, because that will benefit you extremely well in the long run.
Hopefully get a lot of this back. I mean, is there any questions here? I know we got a couple minutes. I can stay a few more minutes extra if you guys are there and have questions, but it's up to you guys.
What questions do you guys have for them?
I don't know if I have a question, but no, thank you for the advice. I think it's very good. The list of goals, or knowing your goals, I think is really important, and also making a list of your deliverables that you completed. I think that's something really smart to take that I'm going to take with me. So I really appreciate it.
Ella?
I had a question, I guess, in terms of conflict resolution with like coworkers, maybe, I guess, when you're dealing with someone that's kind of difficult, or like you just have a higher up that like really seems to be breathing down your neck or something, like in terms of behavior and how you go about like either continuing your work or like addressing the issue.
Yeah, they're called blockers typically, but there's other kinds of them. I mean, from my experience, you have a couple options there. You can try to just unblock them. So just over contribute and make sure you just get around them just by the fact that you're doing everything you can, or you just go around them. I mean, there's sticks in the mud everywhere, and every corporation has them, every company has them, every social thing with humans in it has them, right? There's just blockers and everything. So getting around them is actually a lot of times you'll be considered having high agility if you can get around those people or work with them. So when I say get around them, don't take me wrong. I'm not like, yeah, I don't want to listen to anything you say. It's working, it's keeping the person there, but working around them to get your goal done correctly. You know, you could go right through them, which is a bulldog, and people that typically don't like bulldogs, but if it's somebody above you in position, you know, you can, if it's really becoming a problem and they're somehow inhibiting your growth or inhibiting your ability to do your job, different story. Then you go to your manager and say, this person is inhibiting my ability to get my work done, and here's why. And then it is your job of your manager to clear that blocker for you. And if your manager doesn't clear the blocker, then just go to another company, because if your manager will not fight for you, you do not want to work for that manager.
Yeah, I would say psychological safety is extremely important in your organization. So that's the ability to freely share your opinions, your thoughts, without thinking there's going to be repercussions coming towards you, especially when you're dealing with leadership. I'm in operations. 90% of my job is dealing with roadblocks and detractors on an executive level. I would say the first thing that you want to do is try to remain as unemotional about it as you possibly can. The flip side of that is try to understand where they're coming from. A lot of times when people are deterrent in the process or what you're doing, it comes out of a place of fear for their job and their role, that they're going to be pinpointed for something that happened wrong. Second, I would say, I would agree with Matt, go to your manager, whoever is above you. And one of the most beneficial things that I found is go to them with the facts. Say, this is what's happening. This is how it is kind of keeping me from meeting my goals. And this is what I would like for you to do. So taking the onus out of like them having to think about, okay, how do I solution this, when they might solution it in a way that's not actually helpful for you. So we find that a lot in my org. Executive leadership's unhappy. They want to add 15 meetings to a process. We tell managers, hey, we need help with this. This exec is pushing back on us. And instead of cutting down the meetings, if you're not clear, they will just try to please that executive instead and say, no, I don't want this executive pleased. I need for you to tell them to cut the meetings from 15 to 2 so we can actually hit our timelines, and be very directive in what you need. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that. I resonate with everything you said so much. I'm kind of laughing in the background because I'm like, you're part of the group, right? When you guys get into the corporate, everything just kind of, you just know how it works. So I think, Michael, you have another session scheduled. So perhaps if you guys have more interesting things or want to bring something back, I think there is another scheduled session coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, we will have Matt and Betsy back. I'm wanting to say it's on the 25th. No, just kidding. Yeah, on the 25th. It's kind of a part 2 to this, talking about today's corporate hot topics. And you'll see more information about that in your email and on flyers and things like that. But yeah, they'll be back on the 25th. So feel free to come, invite your friends, tell them to come, because this is some really good stuff. There's so much stuff that we could have talked about today that we just didn't have time for. But the things that they did touch on today are super important and super helpful. So I thank you guys both very, very much. If you have any additional questions for them, feel free to stick around and ask. I'm going to officially, say if you need to go, feel free to go. But you're also feel free to stay in and chat if they have time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, nice to meet you all. See y'all later.